Moving on to toddlers from 1 to 3 years of age. Feeding guidelines, you want to avoid distractions at this stage. You want to keep the atmosphere pleasant. You want to limit the meal duration. Don't be, stretching meals out to an hour or something. 15, 20 minutes is more than enough for most young children. You want to be providing 3 meals a day plus snacks with water in between, encouraging self-feeding at this stage, and continue to introduce new foods. If a baby rejects a food or a toddler rejects a food, don't worry, just introduce it again. Often it'll take up to 10 to 15 exposures before a food is actually accepted, so don't give up. The appropriate foods, you want to focus on healthy family foods with a variety of flavors, textures, and colors. You want to minimize processed foods with added fat with added salt and sugar at this stage. And ensuring adequate calories means providing regular meals and snacks, feeding sufficient but not excessive fiber. You don't want to be putting concentrated fiber like wheat bran on your children's food. You want to include grains and starchy vegetables and legumes or tofu at most meals, so they're more calorically dense foods. You want to include fat sources with each meal. And when we talk about fat, it's really important to recognize that very low fat diets are inappropriate for toddlers. They should be getting about 40% of their calories from fat at age 1, and that would slowly be reduced to about 30% by age 3. So you can see it's a fairly high fat diet. You don't want to restrict high fat whole foods like avocados, tofu, nut and seed butters, and creams. And you can use concentrated fats and oils, but if you do so judiciously, because they can crowd out foods that provide iron and zinc and calcium and all the other essential nutrients, it's best for most of the fat to be coming from whole foods. Now, when we talk about milk for toddlers, this is an important one because starting at about 1 year of age, full fat fortified soy milk can be introduced. Soy milk has about the same amount of protein as cow's milk and more iron, so that's a benefit of soy milk. But soy milk has less fat than 2% cow's milk, so it's important that other fat sources are included. Toddler formulas can also be an option for toddlers with feeding difficulties or with poor dietary intakes, but they are definitely not necessary for most healthy children. We need to mention some milks are probably less desirable at this stage, shall we say. Fortified almond, coconut, oat, rice, hemp milks really do provide insufficient protein to serve as a primary milk for toddlers. They provide about 1 gram per cup. Rice milk should be completely avoided for children under 5 due to its arsenic content. And other beverages apart from their milk, you want to select water as the main beverage. Avoid all sugar sweetened beverages. And if you do decide to provide a little fresh squeezed juice, limit it to not more than 4 ounces a day. Whole fruits, and I'm talking about fruit juice here, whole fruits are better choices. Vegetable juice, I would say, is just fine. How much sugar and salt? Well, the chronic disease risk reduction cutoff is 1,200 milligrams for toddlers for salt. Many kids' meals at fast food establishments exceed this limit in 1 meal. For sugar, the American Heart Association recommends no added sugar for toddlers up to the age of 2, and no more than 6 teaspoons per day for children over the age of 2. And, a little sugar like maple syrup or something in a healthy muffin or a cookie that you're making homemade is not the issue. The issue really is processed foods. And you need to be aware. One serving of, one processed food or a soda or something like that can easily contain 10 to 12 teaspoons of sugar. So we just need to be aware of that. This is our plant-based food guide from Nourish, and what you'll see is that it's a plate with half of the plate being fruits and vegetables, and nearly a quarter of the plate is grains and starches, and then the rest being legumes, nuts, and seeds. And then we have this little plate above, which are the add-ons that are the things you might not get enough of, even if you eat according to the recommendations of the plate. And that would be vitamin B12, vitamin D, iodine, and possibly EPA and DHA. So what you want to do is you want to provide a variety of foods from each food group during the day. It's best to include foods from at least 3 or 4 of the 5 food groups at each meal, and include foods from at least 2 of the food groups at snack times. And being a Canadian, I'm really proud of the new food guide that Canada has. Health Canada, I think, has now become a global leader in nutrition, national nutrition policy with the new food guide. And what you can see here is that the food guide is half the plate is fruits and vegetables, a quarter of the plate is grains, and a quarter of the plate is protein-rich foods. But they make a very strong recommendation that you should be choosing plant protein foods most often. And when they list your choices for protein foods, they begin with all the plant choices as opposed to the animal choices. You can see there are no longer 4 food groups where meat and dairy are 2 out of the 4 food groups. Dairy has not been entirely excluded. It's in with the protein foods, but it no longer has a category of its own. So this is really quite a progressive plant-based plate. What about supplements for toddlers? We would recommend 600 IUs of vitamin D a day, vitamin B12, 10 micrograms a day or 250 micrograms twice a week, iodine, 90 micrograms a day, EPA and DHA, 70 milligrams a day. And this is still controversial. It's optional, but I think it's a reasonable choice. And multivitamin is optional as well. Liquid supplements are recommended at this stage.